Right, hello everyone. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly what you're going to do, okay, during the 2 hour SOVA exam. Okay, so just a reminder that for both your prelims and your O-level SOVA exam, for section A, one of the questions you are not supposed to do. Okay, so one of the questions will be on either Richard Avedon or Vasily Kandinsky. Okay, so because those two artists have been removed from the syllabus, this is due to COVID, so they are reducing the content of the syllabus, okay, to help you. Okay, but what happened is because the exam paper was set before, yeah, at least 2 years before, okay, so the artists happened to be tested. Okay, so this they found out after they had made the decision to remove those two artists from the syllabus. Okay, so it's not ideal, okay, but that is the situation that we are in now. So it's just something that you will have to kind of deal with. Okay, so for that reason, basically for both your prelim exam as well as the O-level exam, okay, you will have the situation where you have 4 questions, okay, but one question you cannot do, okay, which means that you only have 3 questions left. That means there's no choice, okay, you have to do the 3 questions that are left, okay. So what we've done for the prelim exam on the advice of the Ministry of Education is to follow um, this format so that you get to practice it at least once. Okay, so the prelim exam will be very much similar to what you're going to experience in the actual O-level exam itself. Okay, so this video is really basically to help you to plan your time and to anticipate and prepare for what you need to do for the actual exam, both the prelims and the O-level exam. So you have 2 hours for the exam. Okay, so you need to um, plan plan the 2 hours well, and you need to use the 2 hours effectively, because otherwise, if you go in without a plan, okay, then you I find that a lot of students will struggle, okay, and they end up spending a lot of time on 1 or 2 questions, and then they don't have enough time for the other questions. Okay, so this video, I'm going to teach you what exactly to do, how exactly to use the 2 hours. Okay, so to break it down, okay, this is how you're going to spend the 2 hours. The first 10 minutes is what I would call just preparation. Okay, and this 10 minutes is something you can do even without looking at the question paper. Okay, these are things, I mean, even without knowing too much about the artist and artworks, you are able to do this just by remembering your 9 frames, okay, as well as studying the questions, okay, and figuring out what the questions are actually asking for and want you to talk about. Okay. So what do I mean? Okay, so the first 1 minute, and this is really 1 minute. By now, you have to remember the 9 frames. If you still don't remember the 9 frames, I really urge you, okay, to get this done. Okay, remember the 9 frames so that because this is something that again I say this, you only need a minute, less than a minute to do this. Okay, just write the 9 frames down. Okay, this is literally regurgitating what you remember. Just write it down anywhere in the question paper so that you have it there as reference. Anytime you need to refer back to it, you don't have to recall, you don't have to try to remember, you can just look at what you wrote. Okay, if you need to use short form, so subject matter becomes SM, style material technique becomes SMT, whatever works for you, but quickly just write all the 9 frames down. Okay, and for some of you, you may even want to do this. Okay, you know the EOA, you know the PODs. Okay, then quickly write them down again so that you don't have to waste time trying to remember what they are, trying to really, like use your brain power and brain cells to figure out what they are. Just remember, just quickly regurgitate them and then write them down. Okay, and then that's done. Okay, so the first minute is really just regurgitation. You don't even have to think about the questions. After that, okay, what I suggest you do is you do a quick mind map where you figure out what the questions are asking for, and you think of the relevant frames for each part question. Okay, So, but before I go there, okay, I, I've been using see, know, infer as the three categories within the 9 frames, okay, to help you break it down into 3 times 3. Okay, so 3 frames in see, 3 frames in know, 3 frames in infer. But how do you actually use them together? Okay, basically, this is the formula. Infer, in order to make a good inference, you use what you see in the artwork and then what you know about the artwork. When you put them together, okay, that will really help you to come up with an inference that is much more plausible and that actually makes sense. Okay, so for example, if I were to use Georgette Chen, Phoenix Eyes as an example, in order to talk about, to interpret the symbols, okay, to kind of infer what the symbolism of the artwork is, I need to use what I see, which is the subject matter of the work, the style that she has painted them in, and things like that. And triangulate that with what I know about the work. So the context, the theme of identity, and things like that. And when you put them together, okay, your inference is a strong one. Okay, so the artwork is the symbols are really about Chinese identity, okay, in the context of Japanese occupation and things like that. So you use both what you see and what you know to come up with a good inference. Okay, so let's go back to this part. Okay, so we're still at the first 10 minutes. Okay, so you spend about 9 minutes, 3 minutes for each question. Okay, where you map out the frames, the relevant frames for each part question. So for example, it will look like this at the end of excuse me, at the end of the 9 minutes, you will have just something like this for each question. Okay, and how do you actually do this? Okay, each question will have 3 part questions. Okay, and each part question we know will focus on different frames. Okay, um, so you want to try to spread out the 9 frames across the 3 part question so that you don't repeat yourselves and to make sure that your answer is really focusing on what the question is asking for. Okay, so when I look at the 3 questions, the first one, composition, it could be anything really. It could be, it could be anything. So I'm going to look at the other 2 questions first. Let's look at the second question, use of technology. Okay, so now we know that this question is probably asking about how the artwork is made. So you're talking about material, technique. And then, of course, when we talk about material technique, we want to talk about the significance of the material technique. We want to talk about why. Okay, so we talk about the intent. Okay, so I would put those 2 frames there. Okay, I'll just put those 2 frames there first. And I will look at part C, talk about influences. Okay, I see the word influences, so I know that influences have to come in, okay, for this part question. Okay, and then when I think about the references, which is the Hokusai's artwork, okay, these are stories as far as we're concerned. These are stories, okay, that he was I mean, aside from the similarity in composition, okay, whatever the Hokusai's artwork is about becomes stories for this particular artwork. Okay, and then of course there's certain symbolism in the work. Okay, so we can also talk about that here. Okay, so already you have 5 frames. Okay, so that leaves us 4 other frames, and we can kind of figure out which ones go here. So when we talk about composition, I'll focus on the subject matter. Okay, and I'll focus on the aesthetic quality. So we are using 9 frames. We are not using all the frames. Okay, but between the sorry, we are using 7 frames. You're not using all 9 frames. Okay, but between the 7 frames, you kind of get a sense that your answers will be enough, okay, to get you to really discuss the artwork thoroughly. Okay, so let's go back to the time. Okay, so this is 10 minutes in. 10 minutes in, you should have your 9 frames written down. You should have a very simple skeleton of the mind map, okay, for each question. Okay, what next? Next, you focus on one question at a time, okay, and you give yourself 35 minutes for that question. So 35 minutes, the first 5 minutes, okay, you flesh out your mind map. That means whatever you can remember, whatever you can think of, whatever ideas that come to you, okay, in relation to the frames that you've already identified, you just write them down. Okay, you spend 5 minutes to do this, and then after that, you spend 30 minutes, okay, to actually write your answers. About 10 minutes for each part question. That is all you need. You don't need to write so much. You don't need to write a whole like composition, 300 to 500 words. No. Okay, it's really about maybe 10 sentences, each sentence about 15 words. Okay, and that should be enough. So your answer should not be longer than like the whole page. Okay, maybe just half to 2/3 of a page, depending on the size of your writing. Okay, so anyway, the first 5 minutes, I will flash up my mind map. So I already have the three, like the skeletons, okay, with the frames identified. And then for each frame, I just unpack them. So for example, subject matter. Okay, I will talk about the composition looking like a tableau. Okay, I'll talk about the figures in the foreground, what they're doing, what's in the background. And then I'll go to aesthetic quality. So aesthetic qualities, I'll talk about, for EOA, I'll just talk about color. Okay, and then for principles of design, I'll talk about any of these things. Okay, so if you look at this, you already have four figures, what they're doing. That's already 4 points. You look at principles of design, that's already, if you can talk about all these things, okay, with evidence from the art, the artwork, that's already another 4 points. All these other things that will give you an additional 3, 4 points. Okay, so you already have enough points to get you your 10 marks. Okay, and then same for material technique intent, I will just regurgitate whatever I can remember, whatever I can think of, I just write them down. Okay, so thousands of still, they don't even have to be in any particular order, but material and technique, I will talk about, thousands of pictures taken over a period of months. Everything is staged. Okay, the figures are models. It's not an actual real life scene. Okay, and then he used digital technology to put them all together. He presented them as a light box. Okay, so, and it's quite large, so it makes it look cinematic and grand. Okay, and then intent. Why? Why did he do this? So with Jeff Wall, it's always to tell a story. Okay, it's to tell a story about everyday life. Okay, and he wanted to use photography in a painterly way. So he used photography as a medium. Okay, but his approach to it in terms of designing the composition and actually putting them all together is very painterly, like how a painter would do it. He wanted to challenge the idea of time in a photograph. So instead of a photograph taking a moment, a single moment, okay, here he's taking many, many, many moments and creating one single moment out of them, okay, thereby challenging photographic norms. So these are just things I remember off the top of my head, and I just regurgitate them out basically. Okay, and then lastly, influence, story, symbols. Okay, whatever I can remember, I just plonk them in. Okay, and then I start writing. Okay, so 10 minutes for each part question. Again, you should have more than enough here, okay, to get you at least 27, 28 points out of 30. Okay. Um, Okay, so, and then after that, of course, you repeat it for the other two questions. Okay, so all in all this would add up to about 115 minutes. Okay, so you have 5 minutes to spare in case you need more time for any of the questions. You have 5 minutes. If you don't need the spare time, then you can use the 5 minutes to go through your answers and to check everything, and to add on things that you happen to remember, later. Okay, but in terms of time, you are quite comfortable. Okay, and you make sure that and by sticking to this plan, you make sure that you have addressed all the questions and address all the part questions as well. Okay, so this is something to help you to really plan your time and know what to do during the exam. Of course, in order to be able to do this well, you need to do two things. One is prepare. Okay, prepare. What do you mean by prepare? That means you need to study your artists and artworks, read the information, and then do your mind maps and nine frames templates and whatever. Okay, so that for each artist, you should be able to talk at least a few things about each frame. Okay, and the second P is prepare and then you practice. Okay, so you need to do practice. So practice, you can do it in a few ways. One is you just practice the first 10 minutes. Okay, you just practice the first 10 minutes. Okay, so what I would do is I would go to the SOVA folder. Okay, I would just pull out any exam paper. So for example, this is the prelim question paper from 2 years ago. Okay, so I would just practice the first 10 minutes. Okay, so I imagine this is the actual exam. Okay, I remove one of the questions. Okay, and then I just practice thinking, deciding which frames are relevant to each part question. Okay, and then that's it. So that's one kind of round of practice that you can do. Another type of practice you can do is, of course, the 35 minutes here. Okay, so you just again pull out any question paper. Okay, so maybe last year's prelim paper. Okay, and then I choose any one of these questions, maybe this question. Okay, and then I practice the 35 minutes. Okay, and then lastly, of course, if you have time, then you practice the 2 hours. Okay, so your practice can be in stages. Okay, you start with the 10 minutes and then the 35 minutes and then the 2 hours. Okay, but I think if you do the first two, okay, if you practice the 10 minutes and the 35 minutes 2 or 3 times, I think you should really be quite fine. Okay, so I hope this helps. Okay, and yeah, just I hope, yeah, I hope this helps you to kind of be better prepared, okay, when you step into the SOVA exam. This applies to both your prelim as well as your O-level exams. Okay, so please make sure you go in there with this plan, and you are clear about the plan, and you are able to execute the plan. Okay, stick to the plan. I mean, okay, because if you don't follow the plan, there is a real risk of you not being able to complete all the questions in time. Okay, so I hope this helps. Okay, and that's all I have for you for this video. Thank you.